So, welcome to COVID-19 Tough Decisions for Business Owners. Today is episode 25. It sounds like a real landmark, and it is on harassment and bullying, how to make it stop. So, we started this series actually in March 23rd by doing bi-weekly series, and then we've been slowly going to weekly and now by every second week. We started it because we really wanted to help managers and business owners with their decisions that they were making. These were tough times and things were changing so regularly. So we started by doing it twice a week. If you like us, tag us at PeopleBright or hashtag COVID-19 TDBO. A little bit about myself. I am the founder and president of PeopleBright Consulting. We are a full service HR consulting firm, and I'm the proud creator of a concept called Connect with RevUp, which teaches leaders people management skills, focusing on the people skills of their roles. I'm passionate in helping create healthy workplaces. I come by this because I had a really wonderful journey with my husband when we ran a company called iTrans Consulting. It was an engineering firm which we had, and we became one of the top 10 best workplaces in Canada twice. So I have about 25 years working as an HR professional and as a serial entrepreneur. I am the proud host now of Rev Up Your Potential with Hilda Gann. We just launched that last week, and it's a series where we look at the entrepreneur next door and we learn their stories behind their success, the struggles that they've had, and the lessons that they learned along the way. So if you like hearing through stories and learning about people, then check it out. Rev Up Your Potential with Hilda Gann. So what do these organizations have in common? Ubisoft, the Governor General's Office, and Ellen DeGeneres. So tick, 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 tick. If you said they think they are creating an inclusive work culture, you'd be right. But if you also thought they've been in the press lately with Ellen, toxic work environments, with the Governor General, accusations of bullying and harassment, and in June, Ubisoft being charged or being alleged to have sexual harassment, systemic harassment in the workplace. We're going to put up poll number 1 right now. What do you do if you felt you were being harassed or bullied? So check all that apply. It is a multiple choice question. An interesting one that people might not know about is the Canadian Museum of Human Rights in Winnipeg was found to have allegations of racism. This is a human rights, our Canadians Human Rights Museum found to be charged with racism in their organization. And they've created a report with 40 recommendations of how they can stop racism. Okay, so are we done with the results? Just another couple of seconds. Okay, so let's end the poll and check out the results. So I'll let you share them, Jenny.
Sorry, I actually don't see it again. I'd have to...
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, so the most responses were consult your friends and coworkers if you felt that, or speak to HR and senior management. Definitely, these are 2 of the major things. 55%, that was 64% in each. 55% of people said they would consult the person to stop. Kudos for you, because it should start with having a discussion. You know, confront might be a strong word, but have the courage to have a discussion. We can talk about how to do that in a respectful, neutral way. 36% of you would quit your jobs. You know, that's really, really hard to do, but sometimes it may be the best solution. So
I think one thing I would add for consulting your friends and workers is just to make sure you're not gossiping. That's a difference between talking just to consult and like share your feelings privately versus gossiping, sharing the word in a bad way.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Okay. Oops. one of the things is we talked about the fact that they had a perception that they were doing a great job of their work culture. And I think there's a growing awareness that there's a disconnect. Leaders think, wow, we have no problem here. We've got a great work culture. There is no bullying and harassment. So in a study by Accenture talking about the hidden values of culture making, 68% of leaders thought that they created empowering work environments, yet 36% of the staff thought that was a perception. And I think oftentimes in strong companies where the leaders and employees values and perceptions align, that's a good company. And that's how we became one of the best workplaces. The value gap between our employees and us were not as disparate as you see here. So today I'm going to talk about harassment and bullying and how to make it stop. What constitutes harassment and bullying? Then we'll talk about how it can affect the workplace. What are your obligations and responsibilities, and how you can stop harassment and coach others to diffuse the situation. So, what is harassment and bullying? Understanding it is important, and helping others to understand it so that it does stop. I'm going to show you a little video, and this should help. Should we start poll number 2 while we're looking at it, Jenny, or no? I think the screen it will block on the screen. We'll start with this, and then we'll do poll number 2.
Has been done to prevent workplace bullying and harassment. The truth, however, is that we still have a long way to go. For example, a recent report found that one barrier to women's retention and progression in the chemical sciences is widespread discrimination, harassment, and bullying. But what exactly are bullying and harassment? Bullying is offensive, intimidating, malicious, or insulting behavior. It's an abuse or misuse of power through means intended to undermine, humiliate, denigrate, or injure the recipient. Harassment is unwanted conduct affecting a person's dignity and can relate to a range of characteristics. Those accused of such behavior are not always aware they've caused offense. A key understanding, however, is not whether the conduct was intended on the part of the perpetrator, but whether it was unwanted on the part of the recipient. A good question to ask is, would a reasonable person observing such behavior see it as bullying or harassment? If you witness such behavior, think about how you can be an active bystander. After all, we know when something's wrong. Imagine sailing solo in a hired boat and it springs a leak. That's the boat hire company's problem, right? Even so, you wouldn't think twice about taking action. That's the attitude we need to fix bullying and harassment. Ask if there's active bystander training available in your institution. And remember, good role models aren't just good scientists, they're good people.
So I think this really shares with you in a very succinct way what happens in the definitions. This was actually, I'm going to stop that now. This was actually from British, but it does send the messages. And I think the two important things is that it is behavior that is perceived. It isn't what you say, it's how that person feels. And second, you can't use the excuse, well, I didn't really know. It's what a reasonable person ought to have known. And those are two important things, whether it's bullying or harassment. I want to get to poll number 2 now. What if you saw a coworker being bullied or harassed? Check all that apply. So we're getting people filling it in now. So thank you for doing that. So we'll just give it another 10 seconds.
So we have a great comment here about what I just said, gossiping actually.
Yeah.
Just like she commented that like not wanting to gossip or not wanting to be seen as a gossiper may get in the way of getting help, which I agree. And then she also said sometimes it's not viable to have a discussion with the harasser and bullier, since they may be a great manipulator or one may be too traumatized to be able to do so.
Yeah, right. And I think there's a difference between talking to a confidant and gossiping. Gossiping is where you go to everybody or many people and it will escalate. You know, one person will tell two people, and before you know it, 10 people. That's gossiping. When you speak to a confidant, that person should keep your confidence and not spread the information around. I think that's the distinction. So we'll close the poll now. And Jenny, do you see it or no? Okay,
No.
so the question was, what if you saw a coworker being bullied or harassed? What would you do? 75% said that they would ask if the coworker needs to talk. Great, because I think sometimes talking about it really helps. That person might confront the person on behalf of the coworker. I think if you do that, you need to make sure you understand the facts and that you do it in a way that is supportive and doesn't escalate the situation. Speak to HR and senior management and give the worker suggestions or recommendations. So all good tips. So let's go on to the next slide now. So how does workplace, oops, am I doing that right? Yeah. So how does workplace harassment affect the company? When you have people who are not able to speak up and to share what they need to do, then it can result in tarnishing the image and reputation of the company or organization. So Ellen DeGeneres, the Ubisoft, and the Governor General, all of those organizations got into the media, and that affected their reputation. And some people lost sponsorship because they didn't want to have anything to do with Ellen DeGeneres anymore. It affects people wanting to go work for that company if they know there's a toxic work environment and that that there's systemic harassment. Creates that toxic work culture where people feel demoralized. Imagine coming to work and you feel belittled and stressed. And this concept of gossiping that Jenny shared as well. Then there's low morale, the staff attendance. You know, when people get stressed, oftentimes they're not there the next day. I know sometimes we've had to talk to people about performance issues, and I'm not surprised the next day they're so stressed they don't come to work. They're not well. There's a financial impact on the client and on sales, because people don't want to do business with you anymore, right? Low productivity is another aspect. Once people feel that they're impacted, their activity really does suffer. There's a lack of trust. And when people can't trust each other anymore, it does impact productivity. It does impact that gap between the managers and the employees. There's the hiring and retention, and the bullying and harassment policies and procedures are under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And so when people are fined for not doing something, it comes with very steep financial costs. There are a couple of cases that I'll just quickly mention, is not to mention the cases, but fines of $200,000 for bullying somebody and harassing them, for example. Okay, so not addressing it really does affect. What is the obligation and responsibilities of an organization? It really is to maintain a safe and supportive work environment. Bill 168 and 132 were created to protect people from bullying and harassment. And I'll quickly mention two significant cases that resulted in the act being passed. One was Teresa Vince. She was an employee of Sears for 25 years. And when a new boss came into to town, he started to harass her to the point that this ideal model employee really suffered from it. She tried to basically say what was happening to her. In the end, her boss shot her and killed her. Lisa DuPont and Dr. Daniel were working at the Hotel Dieu in Windsor. She was a nurse, he was a doctor. She started to complain that he was harassing her after they broke up, to the point that after many attempts to try to stop it, he went into the hospital one day and shot her. So these two showed how bullying and harassment can escalate, and there is really a need to protect. So through the families, they lobbied, and the Occupational Health and Safety Act, protecting people first from bullying and harassment, Bill 168, and then sexual harassment, Bill 132, were passed. And over the years, it was implemented and were required by larger organizations than smaller organizations. Any organization over 5 now has to have a policy and procedure and program in place. So if everybody's compliant, they're there. Some companies don't know and they don't do it. What I challenge you and what really upsets me is that we have these policies and procedures in place, but the work culture does not support that. How many people go to activities, and I do, and people complain about their boss yelling at them every day, and they don't do something about it? This is what I'm saying, is we need to have not just the policies and procedures in place, but we need to have a culture that supports people. And supporting people means you follow up on the policies and procedures that you have in place, that you educate people to understand what their rights are and what they should be doing and how to stop bullying. And then you enlighten people to create a culture that's respectful. Now, some of you, I think in the questioning too, wondered, how do you kind of have an eye on that when you're working remotely right now, given COVID-19? And I guess sometimes you can hear it in the words people choose. There's always a way to say something that's nicer or better. And so taking them aside and talking about that, or if you get it reported, you do need to follow up on it. So to highlight what the policies and programs are, you need to have a policy in place. And that policy is a statement about what you believe about bullying and harassment. And in most organizations, it's about, yes, we support this. We believe people need to come to work and feel safe and not harassed. And we enforce it. But that policy statement does not seem to carry through into a culture that allows people to talk about it. In addition, there is need to investigate. So every complaint needs to be investigated. Even if it's a small complaint, it needs to be investigated, and policies and procedures need to be in place to support that. And then you need to identify, well, what happens if it is a senior person and if it's the person at the top? And in the case of Ubisoft, there have been so many people at the senior level that have been terminated or resigned because it was at the top, and there needs to be policies in place for that. Okay. Is this a good time to stop for any questions, Jenny, before I continue?
Yeah, I think so. Just following the policy program and how there are a lot of bullying coming from the top and going down. We do see that sometimes, like the HR, senior management are the bully. For example, our one registrant unfortunately was sexually harassed by a head of HR. In another situation, the HR officer made it worse by defending the one harasser and proposing that only the other one be dealt with. So following that, like, how do you manage that when your harasser is the person above you?
When the harasser is the person above you, you always go to the person that person reports to, right? And in the policy, it should state that, if your harasser is your manager, you go above that person. If that person happens to be, the head of HR or the head of the company, there's nobody to go to. So you need to go to report it to, if it's a human rights issue, the Human Rights Commission. If it's a labor issue like non-human rights, then you report it to the Minister of Labor. So there are external bodies that will come in and do it. One of the things that that can happen is if they do an internal investigation and you find that you were not happy because you felt that that the process was flawed, you can then go again to those two bodies, and they, particularly with regards to the Occupational Health and Safety Act, they can cause the company to have an external investigation, and the company has to pay for that out of their pocket expenses. So I hope people realize that they have somewhere to go. The other thing I think is I read too often where people in HR do not follow up. And people say, well, I don't trust HR, so I won't go to HR. I read that on a vlog one day, and I thought, really, you're giving that kind of advice? That's not the right advice. But I understand that there are colleagues of mine who do not feel brave enough to come forward. But it is an HR obligation to follow the act. And if they were found not to follow the act, individuals, not just the company, can be fined. So an HR who does not follow her duty can also be fined for not doing it. And what I'll say to you as an HR professional, to my HR colleagues, is that you have to find the courage to follow through. Some of you may feel you're in a situation, and this is for employees too. Some people feel that the HR person is supporting the company. That's what their job is. So why go to HR? Because they're just going to support the company. And the duty of a strong HR professional is to show neutrality, to create neutrality in the workplace so that staff can come to you, so that managers can come to you, the senior team can come to you, and you are that bridge to create a healthy workplace. When you create a healthy workplace, it impacts on the bottom line. And we need to teach employers, organizations, that the role of HR is to help build the morale, the culture, but to build it in such a way that it does impact a healthy way on the bottom line. So as professionals, you need to educate yourself to look at it from a business perspective, because then they'll buy into it a lot easier. So how do you stop harassment and bullying? So there really isn't a right answer, but there are simple steps that you can do, and this is what I wanted to share with you. If you've heard my difficult conversations, that's a difficult conversation, having a conversation regarding bullying and harassment. So my advice is always listen and keep an open mind. And when you talk to people, talk to them in a respectful tone. Use words that keep things open-ended. Use words that show that you value them as individuals, and use respectful tone. Nobody likes to be yelled at. Nobody likes to feel belittled. It's how you make me feel. So if you use words that make me feel like a colleague and equal, this really helps. And listen. Don't come up with the answers. Listen. Sometimes people just need to vent. They need to express what they're feeling, and for you to understand the whole story before you make any assumptions or suggestions or solutions. The second thing you can do is you can coach others how to diffuse a situation. Sometimes helping people to stay confident. If you heard my vlog earlier this week, I talked about respect and how you respect people. And you need to make them feel valued. You need to recognize them. So sometimes when you hear things, you need to say, I felt slighted. But that's okay. I'm confident. I know who I am. So I'm not going to let that person deter me. But when a situation of bullying happens and it continues happening and you feel bad, that's when you need to do something about it. Focus on the situation and not yourself. Sometimes, I've noticed that this happened, or at the moment I felt this way. So allow yourself to recognize that, and allow other people to recognize that maybe I felt this way, and is it something that's always there, or is it something that's just in the moment and I can move on? So sometimes helping people to kind of step back and not always personalize it. Just if it is personalized, yes. But if they can step back and realize, hey, maybe it's not me, it's maybe they didn't understand what was said. And maybe I need to educate them that they need to say it better next time. but that's, that's kind of a communication relations. And then I think if it really gets tense, kind of walk away if it gets heated. One of the things you can say is, let's take a breath. Like, you were obviously very upset about this. Maybe we need to just step back and resume our conversation later. So try to de-escalate a situation to help. I'm not saying that this works all the time, but if we want to take something and try to de-escalate it, let's start there. But obviously, if situations are escalating, if it's continuous, you need to definitely do something about it. So, as I sort of said, stopping harassment starts little by little. And one way to protect yourself is from becoming that victim, and to learn to walk away, to learn to gain confidence, to, as you say, talk to somebody in confidence. And you should be able to talk to HR, and if they need help, they should learn and get education on how to be that person that helps diffuse, to be that person to investigate, and to understand their role is not just siding with the company or siding with the staff. In my role, I've often had to help both sides facilitate and understand the perspective of the others. And when you, in your capacity as a manager, human resources, or the business owner, take that position, you become more valued and respected in what you do. So the third thing is, when you need to escalate the situation, go to senior management. Get their professional support and advice. You are not alone in this. Is this a good time to stop for some more questions?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of us are having some issue trying to reach the senior management actually. So there's another question. What do you do when a person brings their concerns to the management or president of an organization and it is ignored?
Yes, yes, I know. And this is that disconnect that I talked about. Everybody thinks, oh, well, we have our policies and procedures, but they don't understand. It, it's going to change. It's got to change. And I think things like Me Too, things like Black Lives Matter, these are bringing equality and diversity into the forefront. So you need to, I guess, persist. Perhaps you need to find a champion in the organization. This is my suggestion. If your organization is one of those that is resistant, they think they're doing a good job, but they aren't, and it's going nowhere, it's got to be reported. And sometimes there's strength in numbers, like you're not alone. And I'll take the Ubisoft as a good example of what has transpired there. People reported it, they weren't getting anywhere. Finally, the staff did a petition, and they got signatures and reported what was happening, and they presented it to the organization, and action started to happen. Because I think, and once it hit the press, then they knew they needed to do something. But I think you could do something like petitioning. The other thing you could do is get together a couple of people and then say, we'd like to do something about bullying and harassment in this company. I know we have a great policy, but it sometimes, we hear it. People are afraid to come. And so suggestions are: create a survey, create a box, say, can we just have this for a couple of weeks where people are allowed to just put it into the box, things that have happened to them. And then perhaps when senior management or HR see it, they realize there is a problem that they need to address. And if they are smart enough, they understand that they're close to being reported now, or they're close to if they don't do action. So these are some of the suggestions that I have. If you have an HR that's really not doing their job, then that should be reported to senior management, the CEO, the chief operating officer, somebody like that. Does that help you? These are some suggestions that are being made. One of the other things that's interesting is, since Ubisoft story broke, the IT industry and gaming industry, I'll be specific, has decided that they need to do something. particularly with women and gender equality and sexism. There was one person that came forward in a chat box and talked about how people would make comparisons when a new female got hired. There'd be an email string for the men to say, what do you think of her? And it was really not pleasant. The other thing they've done in the industry, not just in Ubisoft, is they've created a database where people can go in and either identify who they are in the company or do it anonymously and say what happened to them. So hopefully these are some strategies you need to think of. You might have committees and organizations in your company saying, hey, I want to put on the agenda bullying and harassment. And I think we need to have a campaign to assess where our problems are in our organization. So hopefully that helps, that suggestion. So I know we have people in the audience today who are managers and who are HR people. You have a role to play. You can stop harassment and bullying. It is not safe to just say, oh, well, we haven't heard any complaints. Well, I'm sorry. Either there are complaints and it has not reached you, or people do not feel that they have an environment that allows them to speak up. They're afraid to lose their jobs. They're afraid that nothing will happen. And so for some people, as in our poll, they decide to just quit. So let's do poll number 3 now. What is the one thing you can do to stop bullying or harassment in the workplace? So pick all that apply. You can tell I'm very passionate about this. I really feel that, companies are doing lip service. Some companies are doing lip service by having policies and programs, but they just don't create the next step of allowing a culture to follow up on it. And when the management team feels there's no complaints, they think they've done their job, but they really haven't, because they maybe don't understand, don't realize that they've created a culture that is not aware of the problem, because people do not feel they can come forward. People do not trust the organization to be able to come forward. So we're almost just a couple people, maybe they are not thinking that they're going to submit. So do you want to end the poll in 5 seconds, Jenny? Seems like we have a kind of a diverse, trying various things. Okay, let's end the poll now and see. So again, it seems to be a bit diffuse here. We've got listen to more. People are good at that. They stay focused on a situation and not themselves. Oh, you're learning from my tips if you've already done them yourself. So offer to become part of the action at work to stop bullying. So I'll be interested in having people talk about what that is when we open it up for discussion. And then escalating it to human resources. See, 8% do not feel that they can go to their HR people to escalate that. This is not good. In an organization, HR should be that bridge. HR should be the people that hear the complaints of the employees and bring them and make action happen, or that the senior management team can share ideas and HR understands the voice of the staff and acts as an advocate on that behalf. So what you have is a stronger, healthier work culture if you can do that. Walk away and take a breath. 8% will do that. 50% stay confident and strong. Okay. Am I missing something? I'm just trying to, and then other types, nothing else. Okay, we're going to stop that. I can't seem to get rid of the poll on my thing. Oh, here. So I want to have I wanted to tell you about RevUp. So some of you who are regulars know about RevUp, and I feel you can take RevUp approach to bullying and harassment. RevUp stands is a concept that I created to really help people connect and make workplaces better, make managers better, and make yourself better. And RevUp stands for respect, equality, valued, uniqueness, and potential. And when I talk about respect, I'm talking about how you say things for people, to people. And when you share things, you share it in a respectful tone. Choose words that really help keep the dialogue open and make people feel valued. Equality is to report all the incidences, regardless of race, gender, position, and to conduct training on diversity and inclusion so that people feel valued and equal. Um, I think sometimes if people dismiss one person's example of bullying or incident of bullying, that's not equality. And according to the Occupational Health and Safety Act, every report needs to be followed up. The follow-up could be just incident, like a quick kind of thing, but sometimes it leads to stronger investigations. Value people, stay confident and believe in your own values, and focus on the situation, not yourself, because you are awesome. The uniqueness in here is that we need to understand that each of us is unique. And if we have that approach, I think we will have a perspective of more diversity and inclusion. Treat people as unique and understand that their differences is what makes them the person that they are. And we need to value that. And so when you're trying to think about things, don't be a bully. Don't say things, and this is microaggression, maybe you don't mean to, but think about it from that perspective, is that we want to make sure we value people's uniqueness and that we treat them with the respect. And so in this situation, we have the potential to make a difference. You can create a healthier work culture. Each one of us in our roles as an employee, as the head of the company, and everything in between, we can make that difference. So if anything, COVID-19 has taught us to be adaptable and tolerant. And so I think we can make bullying and harassment in the workplace stop. So I want to open it up for discussion right now. There's only 3 minutes left, but I do want to ask people what they're thinking. So I'm gonna do quickly just a reminder of where we're going, and then I'm going to come back to this slide. So at People Bright, we're happy to help, and I've always encouraged people to take advantage of my 30-minute strategy call. You'll get a copy of these slides so you can link in with me there. Our upcoming slides, presentations will be 2 weeks from now on September 9th, how human resources can build a resilient work culture. And on the 23rd of September, microaggression, how to de-escalate conflicts at work. So this is a list of the 24 that we've done to date and how to get a hold of me. So I'm going to take us back to this and open it up for discussion.
And just to add in onto our next two webinars, I think it's very relevant to what we are all talking about, especially in the chat, how human resources can build a resilient work culture and really engage with the employees and treat people with respect, right? Rev up the employee. I think human resources should really step it up, and just in that webinar, Hilda will help you know how to do all that. So moving on, we do have a question from Maria. It goes along with the question that I pushed up at the beginning. How can you determine the difference from coaching and disciplining versus bullying and harassment? Like how often complaints come across as bullying when simply it is just disciplining and telling you like what you're doing wrong in your performance, right? How do you determine that difference?
I mean, that's a great question, because I think sometimes people feel that when you tell them something from a performance issue that you're bullying them. And I think when you train people, because you're supposed to train your staff too, you have to help them understand that there's a distinction between performance and behavioral concerns and bullying. I'll add one caveat, is that when you talk to people, are you talking to them in a respectful way? Think about how you can say it so that it is more factual and neutral, rather than, you're incompetent. I mean, that definitely is more of a bullying tone. Or you can say, I noticed lately the quality of the work you're doing is is not deteriorate, is less than it used to be, right? So making a statement of fact rather than a judgment that is a denigrating judgment, to say somebody's incompetent, or, I could do better, or a 5-year-old could do better. That is a performance issue, but that's also harassment. So I think we need to educate our staff the difference that this happens, but also teach managers how to present things in a more respectful, factual, neutral tone. So hopefully that helps.
By the way, I'm going to turn the recording off so everyone can unmute themselves and discuss privately.
Okay, so these are some of the questions I want us